Hi homesteaders, my name is Melissa with Gullion Homestead and welcome to my channel where we focus on homesteading skills, self-sufficiency, and resilience. Please like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our content, and this also helps our channel grow. So today I've had kind of a rough start to my day. I got up to feed my sourdough and emptied my sourdough discard into my discard container back there. And then I went to measure out my grams of water and flour, and my scale's broken. I've changed the batteries, nothing's working. So good for Amazon. I've got a new scale coming that should be here. I think it's coming by the end of the day, which will be great because I can't feed my sourdough. I could feed it, but I don't like to feed it without knowing how many grams are going in there. I don't want to mess it up. So we're going to be making bread over the weekend. I'm just going to hold off on that for right now. So I did pick up my Azure Standard order this week, and I have ordered a lot of fruit. Let me talk to you about their fruit. I have cherries right here that I bought a few months ago. This is cranberries. We're going to make a cranberry juice and can it up today. I'm going to start doing some canning recipes. So all the time I have people ask me if I can teach them how to can, because there's just not a lot of my friends and coworkers that know how to can, and they are interested in how to go about it. So I am going to be doing a series of canning videos coming up here probably this spring and summer before harvest season. And then we're going to be doing a lot of it during harvest. So we will be doing some canned meats, and then we're going to do a couple of other like jams. And then today we're going to make cranberry juice, and I'm going to naturally sweeten it with cherries. So we'll talk about that here in just a minute. Last year I purchased fresh fruit from the farmer's market, and there's an orchard by us, and they have fresh fruit as well. And it's great for fresh eating, but honestly, it's a little tasky. I get the fruit home, and then I have to freeze it on trays, and then I put it in bags. And so it pretty much costs me about the same, if not more, and with my time, than if I just buy it frozen from Azure. So I buy it from Azure Standard Frozen. This is, I think we've got I think it's it's 5 pounds. I buy 5 pounds at a time. This month we have cranberries. I got strawberries and raspberries. That's specifically because I wanted to do raspberry and strawberry jam. And I'm just going to go ahead and use the frozen berries this year to actually make that. And this is a good time to do that type of canning because it's early spring. Things are just starting to go into the garden. There's nothing for me to preserve out there right now. It is not a good time to try to preserve, in my kitchen at least, it's not a good time to preserve anything like meat or juices or jams when everything is coming out of the garden and needs to be canned and preserved. There's so much that's going to be coming out of the garden this year that we're going to be loaded down with things that we need to do. And so I wanted to get a head start on my season and my year by just getting some of these projects out of the way. So we are going to start with cranberries that I bought from Azure Standard. And I've never bought their cranberries before, but I just sliced the bag open. But you get this 5-pound bag of cranberries. They look just like cranberries out of the grocery store. You can't get cranberries out of the grocery store this time of year. Normally it's like November to maybe January you can get them. I wanted to do this back then because I wanted to have cranberry juice in my back storage in case we needed it or wanted it. And then I also wanted to do some craisins, my own craisins. We have a dehydrator, and so I wanted to dehydrate some of these as well. I never got around to doing that. So this month I just went ahead and bought them frozen. So what we're going to start with is I was trying to think how many cups do I really want? I'm not sure how much is really going to give me, but I think what we're going to do is start with 9 cups of cranberries, and then I'm going to do 3 cups of cherries to sweeten it. Now, one of the things that I decided to do, some people will sweeten their cranberry juice. Some people won't sweeten it. And of course, cranberries are very tart. And the reason they're so tart is because they're high in tannins. So kind of have to kind of mellow the tannins out, the tartness. You actually have to add some sugar to it to kind of bring that tannin level down. Some people will use sugar. Some people will not use any sugar and just have the tartness. Other people will use honey to taste. I do have honey. I could use honey, but I really thought it would be really awesome is if I could just sweeten it with a different type of fruit, because then we're not adding any kind of sugar at all, which, you know, honey in your body does turn into basically sugar. So it's a healthier way of going about it. But that was my thought. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to do 1 part cherries, and we're going to, is that right? Yeah, we're going to do 3 cups of cherries and 9 cups of cranberries, and then we're going to add our water. So that's going to be a total of 12 cups. So we are going to start with, I have a couple of canners that I use. This is my Presto. It's actually my pressure canner. I don't use it anymore for a pressure canner. I really use it for a stock pot. Although this summer, if I actually need a pressure canner, I'm absolutely going to be adding this out there. An All-American canner, and it holds, I think, now I'm trying to remember, I think it's like 16, maybe 16 quarts. I think it's 16 quarts. So that's awesome because I couldn't do that in this canner. But if I had 20 some quarts, I probably would use this one as well. It's just not my favorite canner, and that's because it got warped on the bottom, and the aluminum is not as fat as the All-American canner, and that's why I have chosen to go with All-American canner. So we'll talk about that more when I do some pressure canning videos. But for now, what I'm going to do is just add 9 cups of cranberries to my cup. This is a 2-cup container. So those extra ones that fell out there. Okay, so we've done 9 cups of cranberries. I'm going to do 3 cups of cherries. Now, I am thinking that this is going to be enough to sweeten this, just because these cherries are sweet cherries, they're not tart cherries. So we have a total of 12 cups of fruit in our pot. Let me give you a peek at what that looks like. Okay, this recipe is a 1-to-1 recipe, so 1 cup of fruit to 1 cup of water. We have 12 cups of fruit in here, so I'm gonna go ahead and throw this on my stove. I don't have a pot filler, which makes me super sad because that would be awesome. And when we ever get a chance to move again, that is going to be a goal of mine. So we're going to go ahead and throw this on the stove. Okay. So I'm going to add 3 of these because this is a 4-cup measuring cup. So we're going to add 3 of these, and we'll have 12 cups of water. All right, so we've got 4 cups or 12 cups of water in here, and these are frozen, so it might take a little bit longer to cook down. But what I'm going to do is let this cook down or cook it to a boil, and then we're going to reduce it here for about 20 minutes or so before we move on to the next step. So I'm going to go ahead and get the pot going at about medium, a little over medium, and we'll get that to a nice boil, and we'll see how the process works. So there's my bowl or my pot of cherries and cranberries. You can see there's a good amount of water in there. That's just going to cook down. You don't really want to put too much water. 1-to-1 is a great ratio, because what we're going to do is, as this cooks, specifically those cranberries, we're going to kind of burst open, and juice is going to come out of those cranberries into the water. And if you have too much water, you're just going to water down your juice. So you could even do less juice if you wanted to do more of like a concentrate. But I want to have a juice that I can can up and pull out when we have our grandkids over or when I just really want some fresh cherry cranberry juice, then I can do that really easily this way. Okay, so I decided just to add the rest of the cranberries in here, and I added some more cherries. So now we're up to 26 cups. Ended up putting 26 cups of water. We have 26 cups of fruit in here, and I did that ratio that I did earlier. I decided to do that because I went out and looked at my canning jars, and I was starting to like calculate how many jars I thought I would get. And then I was going to put cranberries in the dehydrator, and then I have something in the dehydrator. So I was like, this is probably just, it would be nice just to have cranberry juice for a year. I don't want to have to do this again. So I am kind of the kind of person, you have seen this on here before. I just did it the other day when I made elderberry syrup. I made all of my elderberry syrup for 6 months. It's just easier for me if I'm going to do it all at once. So I will just buy some more cranberries if I want to have craisins, which I actually have some cherries right now that I could do that with. So I could do like dehydrated cherries for our salads. Actually, Steve likes dehydrated cherries, but he likes dehydrated cranberries anyway. But what we'll do is I'm going to cook this and bring it to a boil, and then we'll see how many jars. Probably what I'll do is do some pint jars and some quart jars, so we have some different sizes, which is great to have on hand just in case we don't want to open a whole quart jar full of juice. Okay, this has gone for like 15 minutes and it still is not boiling just yet, but I wanted to show you now that it's cooking down, you can start to see the juice coming out. So yeah, it looks, I'm gonna try. Yeah, it's still a little watery. Still a little watery. But you can tell that the juice is starting to form in the water. The juice is cooking out of the berries. So I'm just going to set the timer for like another 15 minutes and let this go a little bit longer, see if we can get it to start a boil. I wanted to talk about some of the health benefits of cranberries if you don't know. They're full of antioxidants. They're great for your urinary health. They're high in vitamin C, E, and K. So it is a great juice just to have around your home for immunity. If someone starts getting sick, it's probably a great idea for you just to pop some cranberry juice into your diet like once or twice a day, just to kind of help get yourself some higher vitamin C to improve your immunity while you're ill. So our cranberries and cherries have been going now for about 25 minutes because they're frozen, they're still not boiling. So I did think maybe I should pop up the heat a little bit. We have a gas stove, and so I can regulate it pretty easily. So I went ahead and just now turned that up. We'll look here at the juice and see how it's going. Okay. So as you can see, my juice is much darker now. I'm gonna take a little peek and take a little taste and see. Yep, you're starting to taste the berries in there, so that's great. Watered down as it was a few minutes ago. And normally what happens is these berries start to pop and they've not quite gotten there. So we're gonna continue just to cook this into a boil and try to get those berries to actually burst all that juice out into our pot here. Okay, we've got a nice boil going. This has taken about 40 minutes. I'm going to turn this down to like a little under medium, like a medium low, and I'm going to let this simmer for about 20 minutes and see if we can get any juice out of that. Not really to taste, but you can see the juice is nice and dark now, so it's doing its job. Turned off my cranberries and I have them, put them in here in the sink and trying to squeeze all the juice into this pot so we have a nice hot pot of juice that we can can up. So in doing that, what we're going to start with is a colander. I'm going to start with this colander, and probably what I'm going to have to do. All right, so we've got my bowl of berries here, and then we've got this bowl right here. Here's my cheesecloth. Hopefully you guys can see this really well. So my cheesecloth on a colander in a bowl. And then I'm just going to start scooping. First of all, I'm going to kind of drain off the berries, the juice right here. And what I'm gonna do is put the berries in here because we are going to hand squeeze those berries back into this pot of juice so that we have as much juice as possible. You can see that the berries have faded because they have some of the juices come out into my pot here, into my water. But I don't really want any berries in my canning. So I am just going to do my best at working at getting all of my berries out. This is not too hard, really. Okay, now I feel like that's enough in that container for now. So I am going to, you guys have seen me do this with other things before. I'm just going to, literally gonna take what I have here and I am going to work on straining it over this pot. Now I'm gonna squeeze it out. You can tie your cheesecloth onto your regular faucet. I have this great bar here that works perfect for something like this. And I don't know if you can see, but it is actually draining. Okay, I changed my camera view a little bit so you guys could see this, but basically I'm just taking my silicone gloves and I'm just gonna squeeze this juice into my pot and get as much of that juice as I can out. Now I will say these berries are really hot. So now what you see here is like the fibrous stuff left over from the cranberries and the cherries. You could easily dehydrate this and make this into a fruit powder, which we might do, and it would be great for smoothies and some other things. But before that, before I toss that or put it in another bowl, I'm just gonna dump these berries. There's no waste in this kitchen. Dump those berries there, right there, and then I am going to pour what juice we have in this bowl back in here. And we are gonna start the process all over again. I'm gonna move this over. That way you can see the whole process all over again. So just making sure I'm getting all the berries out of there because I don't want berries in my actual juice. Now you could do this in smaller batches if you want. That would absolutely work. Yeah, there's still a lot of juice in there. It actually might even work better for you if you did that. You can see the big cherries and the cranberries are super faded, super pale because really the pigmented juice has come right out into our pot here and it's just working fabulous. Okay, and then again, move our pot over. And you could let this drain by gravity if you would like, but I really just don't have that kind of time today. So I want to get this stuff in the canner so we can can. We've got grandkids coming over tonight, or one grandkid that is, and I just need to have this done before he comes because he is a 3-year-old. And so he's not very patient when Mimi is working on things like this in the kitchen. Plus I was going to try to make him some ice cream tonight. So he is not going to care that I'm canning up some berry juice. That's draining. You can see how rich this juice is now. It's super dark. We've got some good antioxidants in there. It is just a great way to use frozen berries if you have them, or if you find cranberries on sale, this is also another great way to use that.
So right there is where I poured a very large took a gallon jar and poured my juice in there for now while I'm straining out the rest. I'm running out of room in the sink, and I just want to make sure that I can separate this nicely.
Okay guys, so I ended up with about a little less than 2 gallons, like 1.5 gallons, 1.5 gallons and 3/4 of cranberry cherry juice. What we're gonna do now is we are gonna get these ready for the canner. So I am going to grab my water bath canner. We'll be right back and we'll show you the process in canning this up. Okay, so this is my water bath canner. You can use any big stock pot. What's important is that you don't want your glass jars to sit on the bottom of this pot. So I have these trays that actually came with several of my canners. I'll just start with one tray at the bottom. What's important here is that you actually fill your jars up above the water line, or the water line has to be above your jars. So we're gonna go ahead, get some water started in here, get some of our canning jars in here so that the canning jars can actually start to heat up as well. Okay, here I have heated up some of my jars in that water in the canner. Some of them I can still pull out by my hands, but it's nice to have nice hot jars when you're ladling your juice into your jars, because you don't want that temperature change to actually break your jar. So that's very important. Now you can see I have quart jars and some pint jars. Here I'm just pouring my juice into my jars, allowing for a 1/4 inch headspace at the top before I place my lids and rings. Now most of the time I ladle my juice into my jars, but since I poured that juice into that gallon jar, I just decided to pour it into the canning jars that way. As you can see, I'm needing a towel to hold on to it because that juice is really hot, and that's what you want before going into your canner. You want your juice to be nice and hot, almost to where it's just under boiling when you're putting it into your jars. Here I take a little vinegar and a paper towel and wipe the rims of each jar, because I have actually poured juice. Sometimes the juice will get on the edge of the rim and then you won't get a good seal when you put your lid on there. So it's real important that you actually wipe that rim completely around the edges before you put your lid on with vinegar. And one swipe around normally does the trick. I'm not sure this is always necessary, but with juice, but I just put a little plastic blade into each jar to prevent any air pockets that might be in the juice, because this can also prevent a good seal as well. This is something you always want to do with any other type of foods, like solid foods, but with juice, I don't always do it, but I decided today, I think I'll just go ahead and do that just to make sure I get a good seal. Now our lids are in place and it's time to put your rings on, and you basically just want to take a finger, hold that lid in place, and then screw your ring on to just really finger tight. You do not want to crank this lid down, because if you do that, you actually could cause your jars to explode in your canner. You do need a little space to just allow for some steam to come out as the jars are processing. Okay, here I'm placing my juice in the jars with the lids and the rings in place into the water bath canner. And you're going to want to make sure that you have about an inch of water over the top of the tallest jar. So that would be a quart jar for me. And I actually did end up with a little more water. That happens to me quite often, and I ended up having to take some of the water out. This has been processing for 25 minutes. I turned the heat off, and now I'm going to let it sit with the lid on for 5 minutes. We'll be back here shortly, and we'll take all the jars out of the canner. Look at that gorgeous cranberry cherry juice. Now, if this is your first time water bath canning, you will start to hear pings as time goes on, as the jars start to cool and seal. The lids, the rings, you want to keep on for at least 12 hours, sometimes as long as 24 hours. Most likely what I'll do is just leave them there until, hear the pings? Yep, so you're starting to get some sealing. It's one of my favorite things about canning. And I normally leave my lids on for at least 12 hours. So I will probably wait till the morning and then unscrew the lids, wipe down my jars, and then stick them in my pantry. Make sure that you label the top and date it, but this will be good. I mean, for us, it'll probably be good for a year. If we didn't drink it in a year, I would feel fine with it for 2 or 3 years because it's sealed, it's been water bath canned. It is a high acid food, so it's fine to do that in water bath. So we hope you've enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and we hope you're having the best day. Thanks. Bye.